what's up? Just gonna do a recording of the last Advanced Squad Leader game I played called Trial Run. In this scenario, I play as the Canadians, my opponent as some Fallschirmjäger elite Germans. And yeah, I was just on a trip to Canada, so I wanted to play a Canadian scenario. And in this scenario, my objective with my rookie Canadian units, pretty much I'm just trying to get off of the board anywhere between the two hexes delineated by the yellow arrows, so anywhere between those two locations. And the Germans are going to try to stop me from doing so. Only really notable special rule, I basically have off-board machine gun fire that's being thrown up onto the hill to try to restrict German movement. I forget to do it a couple turns, but it was wholly ineffective anyway, so yeah, it didn't really matter too much. So upon my setup, as you can see, I decided to bring my tanks in off this map board here. They could come in anywhere, I believe, between this hex and this hex or this hex. And I didn't want to bring all my tanks onto the same road and just telecast that basically my entire strategy was to come down the southerly route. I wanted to send at least one up along this road, but that didn't really seem like a wise decision from my perspective, because either they're going to have to follow the road and just end up going the same way, but along a more flexuous path, or on the other hand, try to sneak across this way, but I don't know, that just seemed really cumbersome. They would either have to follow this dry stream bed all the way up through here and try to bypass and then come all the way back around. That just seemed like a convoluted path. Otherwise, try to come up the hill and then, I don't know, still have to come through some terrain. It just seemed like a pain in the butt. Didn't want to deal with it, so just sent them all straight along this road, as you'll see, but they do not come in until the third turn. And then these guys up here, I did not even intend for them to try to make it off the board. They were just a token force I threw up here just to keep the Germans honest, so they had to designate some units to guarding this northern flank, so that I didn't just have literally all of my forces coming along the south road. Then he could have just poured it on me, allocated all his forces, just shift them down this way and possibly completely block my advance. So threw a couple squads up here. Yeah, without very high hopes for them. They were mostly supposed to just sit tight and hold down some German units up here. That was the plan anyway. So get this going. Still doing some setup, placing some snipers. I think the sniper was supposed to be placed in a vacant hex. Can't remember if we fixed that or not. I don't think so. Okay, so fired a mortar, didn't do anything. I believe now I'm attempting to fire or throw some firepower at this hex. So we got some concealed units. It could just be a dummy stack, but I figured it was probably actual units in that foxhole. and so I wanted to throw a good amount of firepower onto that foxhole, try to eliminate or at least break the squad or squads that I assumed were there. And I think I held back one of these stacks from firing because I wanted to get at least one stack gaining some headway, move along this way, or at least make it onto the hill, make it across the riverbed. So I think I threw a pretty large amount of firepower on that hex, and I believe I got him. Yep, so revealed it as dummy stack, which kind of surprised me. So those guys all fired, leaving these guys, so now they have free path to make it up onto the hill because no one else has a line of sight. So yeah, they, I think I miscounted movement factors. Okay, so I ended up moving there. That squad. Yeah, I think my original plan, they're literally just gonna sit in these woods, but I think I realized that they could make it onto the hill without even being in the line of sight of anyone, so I figured I'd at least get them up on the hill, maybe try to get them in this forest hex, or I don't know, get them into cover, but kind of same goal in mind, to just kind of hang tight and tie up some German squads from shifting south. Okay. So yeah, that stack just moved into a position where they can maybe lay some fire on these guys, reveal them as a dummy stack. I think that's what I was thinking. Advance them down into the stream bed, which is annoying to try to move through, if I remember correctly. I thought they'd be able to just run across it, but I think it takes a few more movement factors than that. It wasn't as easy as I was hoping. Okay, so I believe the Germans did not have any prep fires to make, so now, yeah, what I'm doing here is a special rule I mentioned. This is basically representing these, what are these called? Residual firepower markers. They represent the off-board machine gun fire, so I get to place 3 of them, and then I do a die roll, and it randomly shifts them around a hex or two, potentially in a different direction, accounting for inaccuracy of the fire. So yeah, it's kind of hard to effectively place them where they're going to actually stop any movement, because it's more likely than not that they're going to shift around. So I think I figured the best bet, instead of placing them all over the board, trying to stop multiple units from moving, it seemed like the move was just to kind of clump them all up in one spot and hope that 1 or 2 of them wouldn't move, be able to block at least one squad, but I don't think I effectively blocked the movement of 1 German squad this entire scenario. Yeah, so you can see the machine gun fire kind of got scattered around, and you know, it's nice having that one there, I guess, but not really, because there's just a wide open route. If any of these units wanted to move down the hill, there's absolutely nothing stopping them. But it's still a cool mechanic, nonetheless, I thought. I guess he decided, oh, he's skulking here, which I hate. I don't skulk. It's not against the rules or anything, but I don't know. A lot of serious ASL players utilize it. I just think it's weak, and I hate it. And basically what skulking does, he just shifts them back 1 hex so that they're out of line of sight of any of my units, so now I can't shoot at them, and he can't shoot at me either, but he's just kind of hiding out back there, and then in the advanced phase he'll move him back in. Back into the trenches. He's shifting those half squads south, trying to cut off my advance up the road with that pretty powerful stack I have down here. But these are just 2 half squads, so this should be fairly easy to contend with. On round 2 now. Let's see. Oh, making some rolls for concealment. I always forget to do that at the end of a turn. I believe that's what I was doing there. Looks like I'm gonna fire my mortar, that concealed stack. Or firing smoke rather. I believe that ends up being. No, I don't think that is a dummy stack. I think it ends up being actual German units. So that's those +3 smokes. They're actually so OP. The prior scenario I played, they were vital. The only reason I was able to win a match. You can pretty easily completely block line of sight with those, combined with even a couple line of sight hindrances. They are pretty hard to contend with if you get hit with smoke in your hex. But if I'm trying to move up on them, I'll still be immediately adjacent and probably in open ground, so that's still kind of a sketchy move. And I'm not sure exactly why I even decided to advance onto that hex. Like I said, these guys' role is pretty much not even to try to inflict casualties or make it off the board. They're supposed to kind of just chill up there. I don't know, just kind of tie up the Germans, as I said before, but I guess I was feeling frisky, so I went for it. So yeah, that first squad made it through, so I figured it was probably just a dummy stack, but then I think he ends up shooting at me maybe. Yes, he does. He reveals that that is in fact a real squad. And got a good shot on me. But I got a good morale roll. So that squad is still chilling. And then, yeah, they didn't want to take that same path through the residual firepower, so they just kind of ran around there. I was lucky to have survived that. Now just moving some of my stacks along. So, yeah, as opposed to the northernmost squad, or stacks of squads, these guys along the south, they are for sure trying to get off the board via this hex, so they are booking it. I'm trying to get them into these forests. as quickly as possible, because there's not a lot of firepower down here stopping me from doing so. So yeah, I'm trying to book it with these big stacks. Okay, so I do end up advancing into close combat. Like I figured. Okay, yeah. I figured, well, I knew I'd have superior odds in close combat, so I guess my thinking was just, well, if I can easily wipe this German squad off the board, that'll make it all the easier for me going forward. So, yeah, that was the change in plan, I guess. But as you'll see, they got severely tied down for the entire match. And they never again moved from that hex. So did some close combat. And yeah, nothing happened. Stuck in melee. Okay, so once again, Germans had no shots they wanted to take, so now I'm doing my off-board machine gun fire again. Again, not effective at all. Quick German turn. Kind of just sitting back waiting for me to show myself so he can shoot at me. Yeah, with the close combat again, but nothing happens once again. Okay, so now we have the tanks coming on. Or not quite yet, but I'm arranging them to come on. I think I hear all the ping marks. I'm explaining to my opponent what my original thinking was and how that just seemed, I don't know, not fun trying to flank around north. So I guess I tend to ping a lot when I'm thinking out loud with my opponent. Let's see. Like I fired a mortar to no effect. I think I was trying to fire smoke, perhaps. He hit my mortar squad with a sniper, and they are pinned. Okay, I don't know why I moved that one squad before Sherman's, but whatever. It was good feeling to have some tanks start rolling onto the board. They are almost always very OP, at least if unopposed by enemy armor. And that one was able to drop some smoke, so that's handy. Oh, I think he takes a Panzerfaust shot at me. And he must have missed because he did not destroy any of my tanks in this scenario. And a Panzerfaust hit is pretty much an insta-kill. They are fucking scary. So, thank God he missed. It was a pretty good shot, because I'm pretty much right up in his grill. Guess I have him go hull down. Doesn't really affect anything. Basically, I think that means like if your tank is on the crest of a hill, you can kind of like nudge it up against I don't know, just like the rocks or whatever that form the cliff of the hill, so you can kind of like hunker down behind just the crest line, so you're not having your entire silhouette of your tank exposed. You kind of like nestle in, ideally, into some bushes or some rocks or whatever, and just have the turret poking out, depending on how well you roll on the hull down roll. That's basically the gist of that. Damn, looks like he rolled Snake Eyes, so might hit me pretty hard here. Yes, he does. He broke most of my squads in that hex. Pinned another one. So that was rough for me. I don't think I take a whole lot more casualties than that for the rest of the scenario. Maybe I take one or two more pretty lethal attacks because I do end up having to make some battlefield integrity rolls. But for the most part, I kind of steamrolled him, I feel like. No, I didn't steamroll him. It got pretty dicey around here at the end. He ended up reinforcing with some dummy stacks, so it looked a lot dicier than it actually was. So I was moving pretty cautiously. But definitely wasn't a cakewalk, although I do end up winning pretty handedly, from what I remember. Oh yeah, I got a lucky shot. I was able to break his half squad here. I think it was a half squad that kind of tore up my stack here. So I was at least able to hit him back. I think I just hit that squad as well with someone. Can't remember who exactly. Let's see what happened there. Oh, that's just the guys that broke. Had to retreat. He has to retreat as well. So he hit one of my stacks pretty good, but I hit, I think, every single one of his units in the vicinity pretty good too. Oh, I ended up regretting. I had an easy kill on this 9-1 leader. I ended up directing firepower towards. I think I was just trying to kill the already broken stacks, try to just wipe him out of the game entirely. But I definitely should have taken a shot on the leader because he ends up rallying them, and then they end up being a pretty big thorn in my side. So I advance another squad into the close combat up here, but they don't do anything. I think they just, someone ends up dying. Yep, he wiped out an entire squad, so really a battle of attrition up in that close combat hex. But at least I guess I kind of end up halfway accomplishing my original goal, which is tying up German units on the north end of the map. I don't know, I'd rather not be trapped in eternal melee with them, but I guess at least I'm not moving anywhere, but they're not moving anywhere either. So that's at least one less squad stuck up there that can't reinforce in the south. Okay, and then my opponent has some reinforcements coming under the board. One of these is a dummy stack. I don't know which is which. The Okay, so he ends up rallying both squads here, which was very annoying for me. That really had me kicking myself that I didn't just kill that 9-1 leader, which I very easily could have done, or at least broken him. So Germans once again are not firing. To my offboard machine gun placement again. It's all for naught though. Doesn't affect anything. Yeah, it looks like at this point the Germans know I'm going all for nothing on this specific hex. So he does some tactical retreats, at least with these guys that were here in the leader. So he can really pour it on into this wide open hex when I inevitably advance into it. Yeah, same with those guys. Moves those guys down from the trenches because they are at long range from this distance. So their firepower is going to be halved, but from here they should be well within distance of hitting these wide open hexes. Moves his reinforcements on. Let me do another close combat. Nothing. Okay. Okay. So yeah, at this point I'm trying to advance some of my units up into this tree line here. I can hopefully get some good shots, try to soften up some of these defensive positions, make it a little easier on myself when I try to move along this road and off the board. It's extremely dangerous moving through open ground, but it's my only path forward, so I definitely don't want to just gung-ho sprint everyone out there, try to make a mad dash off the board. It's definitely tactically wise to try to at least pour some firepower on some of these stacks, get a couple kills, clear up the route a little bit. Thankfully, I believe all my units that I move into position, I think they all end up faring pretty well. I don't think anyone gets hit too badly. And then one reason I'm wary of just sending the Shermans out into the open, which normally, you know, they'd be fine against small arms fire, such as a unit like this, but the Germans do get Panzerfausts, and in this scenario, their range is 2 hexes, so I was wanting to make sure I stayed 2 hexes away from all of his units. I had a Panzerfaust shot taken at me earlier in one of these hexes, and that definitely kind of scared me. That very easily could have destroyed that lead Sherman, so I didn't want to take a chance like that again. This half squad had already fired its small arms and my units that moved up against it, so he wasn't able to take a Panzerfaust shot. But yeah, this guy wanted to have hang back, but now he's out of range of Panzerfaust. I was still concerned, however, he has a hidden anti-tank gun somewhere on the map. It's up here, I think, which was completely useless for him. I mean, he had no idea which way I was coming, but luckily I brought all my tanks along the southern route, so that completely nullified the anti-tank gun he had hidden, but obviously at this point I don't know that, so I'm still a little wary of that. And then the rest of the Shermans, when I have them come up behind, I considered kind of the bad thing, I guess, about this road is now this Sherman, you know, him being in this hex, the other 4 can't follow up, so he's going to be the only one. Well, this hex ends up having line of sight to this hex, so the tank that ends up parking here gets in on the action a little bit. So I was at least able to get 2 in, but for the next couple turns, I was kind of concerned that these rear 2 Shermans, they're end up just being parked here, not really doing anything at all. And I considered that trying to move them into the tree line so they could pour some fire up here. So that'd be would have been insane if I would have had 4 Shermans all firing on these couple units. That definitely would have done some damage and cleared the path. But I don't know the bog rules too well, but I figured there's a pretty decent chance these tanks could have just gotten stuck in the woods and bogged down, and that would have sucked. And I kind of didn't want to risk that, so I guess I just played it conservative, and they kind of just chilled back here while the Sherman that ends up being here, and especially the Sherman, do all of the work in clearing the way, either via firepower with their main armament or laying smoke, obscuring the line of sight for the German player. So those guys roll in. And I believe at this point I'm feeling pretty good. I am clearly completely dominating this forested area. Pretty much no threats to me. I can kind of just congregate a ton of firepower, and whether it's from the tanks or my infantry, it's looking like I'll be able to do some serious damage to whatever units fall in my crosshairs. But we'll see what ends up going down. This unit, He may have just done it. He may have done it in a prior turn, but that mortar's heavy. It was just slowing him down. There's not even any units up on the hill anymore. There's no point in him trying to fire that thing, so he just abandons it, and he's just trying to get up in on this melee. And I also have, I feel like I have my Shermans, I guess not that lead one, but later on he goes open top. Yeah, I end up having them open top for a lot of the scenario, which I've never really done before. I'm always kind of paranoid that they're going to get shot because the open top tanks, can still get hit, obviously, if the tank commander's poking his head out of the turret. So I usually have them buttoned up, but that makes it harder to shoot main armament. And also, a lot of these tanks were trying to drop smoke. They can fire smoke out of the turret, like smoke shells, which I do. But also, they have smoke dispensers, which I don't know. I guess is more like a handheld smoke grenade that they throw out the hatch. That's easier to do if they're open top. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted to getting at least 2 off the board was priority, which I do pretty easily. Kind of just lets the first 2 waltz off the board, but then later on, the priority is definitely to drop smoke, and I don't really care if the tanks live or die at that point, because I have to get 16 victory points off the board, but only so many of them can be vehicles. So I easily could have gotten all 4 vehicles off the board, and I think that would have been like 24 victory points, which is well over the condition that needs to be met. But yeah, only like 12 of them. So 2 tanks off the board, and any more off the board would have been basically useless. I mean, I'd like to get them off the board, for thematic narrative purposes within the game, but in terms of strictly game conditions, that didn't matter. So we do a couple more melee rolls up here. Looks like he hits me again, and yeah, eliminates an entire squad. And so I moved to counter over here. This is a seldom used optional rule, which I don't understand why people don't use it. I don't understand reading a 600-page rule book and learning hundreds, if not thousands, of intricate rules, and then being like, oh, that's 1,001 rules is one too many. Like, I don't want to learn that one extra rule. I don't get it. You have to keep track. It's a little bit meticulous, but I mean, this entire game is meticulous, so why not? And I feel like it's a cool, realistic rule. Basically, it's accounting for the more casualties you take, the higher likelihood your morale as a nationality overall is going to decrease. So that's basically what this is keeping track of. Not every scenario even has that overarching morale level. The Germans don't in this turn, but the Canadians do. The Germans are elite, as I mentioned. The Canadians are rookies. They're not green, but they have pretty low starting morale, so it's easy for them to reduce in quality if they break, which a lot of them do. So yeah, pretty disappointing results in the melee. It's been going on multiple turns now, and as I mentioned, this melee never clears up, so that was kind of frustrating. but at least that one German unit wasn't able to move anywhere. But I had multiple opportunities with better odds than the Germans, so it was a pretty pathetic effort by these Canadian squads that run into that melee. Not happy with them. But I think this close combat going on down here, I like to bring the close combat units off the board and kind of do all that over here, so it, I don't know, clutters up the board a little less, and you can kind of visualize. I don't know, it's easier for me to visualize the odds ratios that you create when you're calculating that. I don't know. But yeah, I think I clear him out. Maybe not. Nope, I do. Right on. So he gets a couple more reinforcements this turn. Also, he just rallied that unit, which he doesn't really end up doing much. Yeah, but he does go on a little solo flanking mission back around here, and he doesn't cause any casualties, but I have some broken units that he's able to make sure stay broken, so he was kind of being a little pest later in the game, but by the end it's I don't know, pretty, maybe not obvious I'm going to win because he has a lot of concealed units down here. I thought it was going to be a lot closer, but he ends up only having like 1 or 2 or 3 real units down here, so even though this half squad is able to keep a stack kind of pinned down, it doesn't. I have enough units that are easily able to make it off the board, so it ends up not really affecting anything at all. Okay. Yeah, here I think is when I start to get a little concerned, because even though I have a lot of firepower stacked up in here clearly, with his reinforcements, he's starting to get quite a bit of firepower, kind of barreled down on these couple of hexes that I have to clear. And even though it's only, 3 hexes and then I'm good, like 3 hexes of wide open ground, that is perilous to say the least. Even half of the firepower that he has stacked here, all concentrated on these couple of hexes, could be more than lethal. So it's important that either my infantry or primarily, I think what ends up happening, the Shermans get some solid hits. That helps me out a lot. But yeah, it's crucial that I get some hits at least. So someone. Okay, so that Sherman fired. That foxhole wasn't able to get any hits. Able to get a pin hit on them, but that doesn't do me a whole lot of good. Need to break him. Yeah. He got a sniper check maybe? Or no, almost did. So I don't have any real good hits on either of these units, but I've got some acquisition now, which is really handy. It makes it a lot easier to hit. It's basically the gun, the turret of the tank. They're zeroing in basically on their target, so that helps me out a lot later, I believe. Yeah, because I end up getting a smoke hit on these guys. I get a near critical hit on these guys. It's important to at least take some shots so you can start zeroing in on your opponents, make them an acquired target. Looks like he wounds my leader there in that melee. Same story as it has been the entire scenario. Okay. Yeah, so I'm still not yet daring to actually try to move out into these hexes. Still just trying to get some firepower on some of these guys. I need to clear out at least a couple of them before it's worth trying to make an advance into open ground. So that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah, get a big hit there. I guess I thought it was a smoke hit that I got, but I guess I just fired normal high explosive on him. So that was huge to clear up that medium machine gun. Because that would be absolutely devastating, trying to move into open ground, only 2 hexes away from a medium machine gun. But yeah, looks like one of the Shermans dealt with them pretty handedly. Still haven't broke him yet. I got a sniper hit on that half squad, so they were not able to advance into the melee. We might finally, nope, still didn't break him. Yeah, that half squad, I remember he took some seriously withering firepower. He kept getting great morale checks. Very impressive performance. We did finally crack him eventually, but he was hanging tight for an impressively long time. So looks like I finally move a Sherman out. I'm sure I try to drop smoke along the way at some point. Yep, then get him off the board. I did something kind of weird. I mean, if his AT gun had line of sight, I'm sure he would have shot at me by that point anyway, but just to be super, super safe, I turned him around facing, so his frontal armor was facing, you know, this way in case he did have an AT gun that had line of sight, since the frontal armor is better than the rear armor, and just had him reverse off the board, which I didn't need to do, but again, in the highly unlikely situation that he did have an AT gun hidden in line of sight, he could have done some damage, but yeah, that was not a likely thing to happen at all. Same thing, so now I have 2 Shermans off the board, and that's basically the max. I mean, I can bring all the rest of the Shermans off the board, but any more than what I currently have off the board isn't going to contribute any more victory points. So I was pretty surprised that he was able to, or he basically let me just walk those Shermans off the board without any sort of a challenge. I figured if his AT gun wasn't in line of sight, he'd at least like try to push it from wherever it was, or you know, if nothing else, at least have the squad or the crew manning the AT gun to abandon it, try to bring down at least, you know, a little bit more firepower into the action, but ended up just letting it sit up in the woods the entire game. Not sure why. I feel like I would have at least had the, yeah, like I said, the crew dash down and try to pitch in their meager firepower, but I don't know. Maybe just thought it wasn't worth it, but yeah, so at this point I'm still kind of confused and why he hasn't fired with it, and I'm wondering what he's scheming with that, even though it turns out he's not scheming anything with it. But I do not know that yet. Looks like someone got a hit on these guys. Yeah, that half squad, maybe, which I recall being annoyed at that I poured so much firepower on him and he just withstood it all. And I mean, yeah, props to this half squad. Give him the Iron Cross, taking all that firepower and then dishing it back. Yep, these guys up in the crags. Looks like they do some damage too. So maybe at this point I'm getting a little concerned that some of my stacks are starting to be broken. And I still have not the clearest path. I was able to clear out the medium machine gun. But, you know, he still have, this could be a dummy stack. But I figured it's probably real, because he probably doesn't care about what's going on up here nearly as much as down here. So, yeah, someone's probably going to be manning that gun again very soon, or at least so I think. And yeah, I've got a couple broken squads now, so I'm getting a little concerned at this point. Seems like I'm knocking out some squads, but there's a lot still remaining. Yeah, so I think these guys are the ones that end up not ever recovering, because he gets this half squad down here to kind of harass them. Okay, so I think I'm getting ready to start thinking about making a real push, because yeah, I only have 2 more movement phases to try to do that. So I basically, because this British turn is over or just ending, so I'm gonna have 1 more turn to try to pour on some firepower, and then just 1 last gasp chance to try to dash for the exit hex. And at this point, so those 2 Shermans I believe are 12 victory points. So I need 4 more victory points to exit the board to get to 16, and so that would be 2 full squads would be 4 points, or 4 half squads, and then also leaders are 1 victory point. If like this 7-0 leader would be 1 victory point, but like this 8-1 would be 2. If they have a negative modifier, they're worth 2 because they're a better leader. Nothing going on in the melee still. Okay, yeah, I forgot. There's a couple turns I forgot to do. Offboard machine gun, firepower. Oh yeah, I decided I just don't want that half squad creeping up on me from the rear, so I try to block him, but it ends up landing on me, which doesn't do anything. I don't get hit by it because it's residual firepower, not, it's only if I move into the hex, not if it lands on me, it doesn't do anything. But yeah, as you can see, he easily avoids it. Oh, I think I thought he was going to try to bring that squad into the melee to try to just wipe my guys out once and for all, but he ends up moving him up into the trench. Try to get a little bit more firepower coming down this way, even though it's only going to be halved. This unit's range is 4, so we can fire up to 8, but range of 5 to 8, his firepower is going to be halved, which is the case for when he fires down into these hexes. Finally was able to crack this guy. That was a huge relief. I think the Sherman maybe was able to finally knock him out. But I was very happy about that because that guy had been withering the storm for multiple turns, and it seemed like he would never crack, but we finally got him. And that one was especially huge because, you know, that's the only hex that he had actually adjacent to the exit hex, and it's, you know, open ground, so that would have been, even though he was just a half squad, that still would have been some serious firepower, firing at any one of my guys that tried to move into there. Yeah, he has to retreat that squad, that half squad out of the foxhole, so I'm happy about that. But he still has, I think these guys end up being entirely a dummy stack. These guys are real, but I'm able to knock them out with some firepower. But as to my current knowledge, those are still 2 pretty strong stacks that are barring entry into that hex. So I'm still pretty concerned at this point. I'm not sure how it's going to end up shaking out. Yeah, turns out I'm overestimating the firepower he has, and I'm easily able to bypass it, but yeah, at this point I'm definitely not trying to underestimate his firepower, and I want to be sure to take every precaution. So, still haven't moved anyone out yet, still want to get some firepower on those positions. Okay, we get a huge smoke hit there, which again, I think I said, pretty sure those are all dummy units. So it ended up not even mattering, but I'm still super stoked to get that smoke there. Okay, I'm able to crack that squad as well, it looks like, so that was huge. Yeah, because that was a light machine gun bearing down on me, so that was massive to get that taken out of the action. Let's see. Okay, so this is my first attempt at actually trying to get some infantry units off the board. I guess I decided I was pretty happy about having that machine gun taken out and having these guys covered by smoke. So I attempt an armor assault here, which is basically the infantry and the tank move concurrently. So the half squads are moving along using the tank as cover, basically. So trying to get at least a couple infantry units off the board. It's not going to win me the game getting those 2 off, but trying to get a couple more of those points at least. So he takes some shots at me. That's a big miss. And I think I was hoping that that was a dummy stack, but it is not. Yeah, it's a light machine gun and an 8-1 leader, so that's going to be a very lethal shot that he takes at me here, and he ends up, I believe, killing one of those half squads. Or no, just one of them is broken. So tough for him, but the other half squad's going to be able to advance off the board, so it's going to bring me to 13. So that leaves just 3 more half squad equivalents I need to get off, so that had me feeling a little better. It's nice to get at least one of those off the board, one of the two, which is about what I was expecting. Oh, and I think I'm trying to move some more infantry units up into this forest hex maybe. Make it a little easier for them to just advance into this hex, or assault move rather into this hex and then advance off versus trying to like run through open ground. It's much easier, even if it's still open ground. Assault move is a much safer option than trying to just run multiple hexes. They were able to drop some smoke, but looks like no one ended up firing at them anyway. He retreats, and I retreat. Our broken squads. Okay, so basically gearing up for my final push off the board. Yeah, I've got some broken squads, so they're not going to be able to do anything unless they get a really lucky rally attempt. But got a good number of good order squads that are at least going to have a fighting chance of trying to run off the board. These guys got stuck here in the open, so I was pretty concerned about them. Figured they were going to take a hit, but I don't think anyone ends up shooting at them. The Sherman, I think I kind of just park him there, act as a bit of a, not a roadblock, but he's a hindrance to the line of sight of anyone up here that's going to try to shoot at these guys. So yeah, all these guys are able to kind of take cover behind that tank, at least one hindrance points worth of cover, which I believe ends up being effective. The melee, I kill his leader actually, which is cool, but yeah, his squad's still there that's been there since the beginning. Okay. So, yeah, now it's the Germans' final turn, and he's definitely gonna want to pour as much firepower onto me as humanly possible. This is his last opportunity to do so, at least as non-reactive fire against me. So I'm really hoping my guys can hunker down, take good cover in the forests, and withstand any firepower that's going to be coming at them. Because I want, obviously, as many my units to survive, so I have as many as I can bring to bear to try to dart off the road here in my last movement phase. So he ends up rallying this half squad, which, yeah, was very annoying to me. Because, yeah, he just ends up moving him right back into that foxhole that I spent so much firepower trying to knock him out of, and then he's going to be right adjacent to the exit hex again. Yeah, I'm not able to rally anyone. I think he misses with all of his shots. Or he might have got some shots, but oh, I think he might have actually killed. Yeah, I think he killed the broken half squad that I had there, because I'm doing some battlefield integrity record keeping stuff. Yeah, and I roll for it, but I'm good. Oh, yeah, and he ends up breaking one of these squads. That had me pretty concerned, but I think I was pretty happy to at least have one that was able to survive. And one of them pinned, but that's okay. It's not my movement phase, so he's not trying to move anyway. Yeah, and again, this half squad is kind of just being a pest. He made it so this stack of broken units was never able to rally, which, yeah, I was kind of annoyed with myself allowing that to happen, not having kind of some rear guard action to keep this guy out of my rear flank. But it turns out I had plenty of infantry to make it off the board, even without these guys ever rallying. So no harm there. I think so. These guys are still good, but very soon they get knocked out. I believe by the tank, possibly by. I don't think by that pin squad. That would be unlikely. Yeah, they don't do anything. Looks like I get a good roll with some of these squads, trying to fire on this stack here, because I really don't want that squad with the light machine gun to be able to rally. That'd be devastating to have that LMG able to fire back down on me. So I definitely want to keep him suppressed, and it looks like I'm able to. Yeah, it looks like I revealed some dummy stacks of his. Those guys stay broken, which is huge. Okay, it looks like now I'm gonna try to fire my Sherman on this pretty juicy stack here. Or maybe not yet. I guess these guys, oh yeah, because I still think this is a real hex, so I'm probably more concerned about these guys at this point than I am these guys, because these guys are, you know, they're not adjacent to the exit hex, but they could very easily move up into that forest hex and then be adjacent. So I think at this point I'm still primarily concerned about them, but someone ends up firing on these guys and breaking them. Oh, I guess he does end up firing on them, like I initially thought. Oh, I did an intensifier, so I did fire on these guys. Nothing happened, and then did an intensive fire on these guys is what it looks like happened. An intensive fire is basically, I don't know, that's what it sounds like. You can basically take an extra shot, but you're really running the risk of your gun overheating or malfunctioning because you're kind of just throwing caution to the wind and just pumping round after round out of the turret, which increases the likelihood of damage. But it paid off huge here because I ended up breaking the entire stack and wounding the leader. So that was super clutch, being able to pull that off. Take a shot at that half squad, nothing doing there. Yeah, at this point, in my mind, I'm still having to contend with this massive stack. That half squad I'm not too worried about. And the squad up here, which is only pouring minimal firepower down here, but it's still an open ground, so it's still a threat for sure. But in reality, these are all dummy stacks. These guys are broken, these guys are broken, so all I'm worrying about at this point, unbeknownst to me, is a half squad and the full squad, but at half firepower. So yeah, I'm still playing it cautiously, I guess, but there's really no need to. It's pretty much money in the bank at this point. But again, I don't know that quite yet, so don't want to take any unnecessary risks. I advance everyone into final position because this next turn, It's last hurrah. Final chance to get some units moving and try to get them off the board. So yeah, he ends up getting the half squad up here back into the foxhole, so I am going to have to deal with that. I'm a little concerned, but oh yeah, then he moves a dummy stack, but I think it's a real stack, so now I'm like, oh shit. I got those guys right there adjacent. I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to want to, I don't know, split this up. I'm going to want to send. Close combat. I end up causing some more casualties for him, but at this point, they're too far away from making it off the board. Even if I had totally wiped him out here, none of these guys even have a prayer of making it off the board. So what's going on up here is completely irrelevant at this point. So go to turn 7, final turn. I think here, I end up deploying this squad, which basically means splitting it into 2 half squads. I feel like it'll be easier because then I can send, you know, 1 half squad into here first, and he can kind of soak up a majority of the firepower that I'm expecting, and then the next squad to go in, well, you know, he'll still take some firepower, but slightly less so. So I figured that was better than trying to use the smoke exponent of this full squad, because when you break a squad up into half squads, they lose their smoke exponent. I don't know why, but that's a thing. So, oh, he ends up not being able to deploy anyway, so I actually don't do that. I tried to do it, but they have to roll for it, and they failed. The bottom squad was actually able to rally, which was huge for me. I was very lucky, or so I thought, because they ended up going berserk, which I figured was not what I wanted to have happen in this scenario, because I want the squad to get off the board, and they're so close. But when they go berserk, they are forced to charge the nearest enemy unit. So instead of going off the board, they have to charge up into here or here. They have to go after someone and probably get locked into close combat. So I kind of groaned when that happened. But so it goes. And then I don't think I get any other clutch rallies. And neither does he. So what I end up doing here, I end up moving this tank first, which was a mistake. Berserk units are supposed to move before anything else moves, but it ended up not mattering. Nothing that the tank did affected anything that the Berserk unit would have otherwise done, or otherwise not done. I don't know. So the tank. Oh yeah, I think my opponent was kind of confused why I didn't just shoot at these guys with the tank, which I could have done. But I mean, he knew that these were dummy stacks. I did not know that. So I kind of wanted to, instead of just firing and maybe taking out that one unit, I wanted to be able to have some sort of effect on these units too. So instead of just firing at these guys with the Sherman, I start the Sherman and get him moving, because I want him to try to drop smoke, because I believe he doesn't have any more smoke shells at this point, but he still has smoke grenades that he can try to drop. So I start up the tank, take a couple very low odds shots, which I'll miss, but then I believe I'm able to, yep, I drop smoke, which is absolutely huge. I was very happy about that. That's going to offer a ton of cover for me. Trying to get off of this hex now, which again, the only firepower he's bringing at me is that half squad, and this squad way the hell up here. But yeah, I thought these were real units, so having a smoke in this hex and this hex, I thought was huge for me. And it was, but not to the extent that it otherwise could have been. So yeah, now the Berserk unit's moving, and he charges these guys here, thus revealing them as a dummy stack. So no one there, so they get to keep moving. And those guys are also revealed as a dummy stack. So yeah, at this point I was pretty surprised to see that. So the Berserk unit still gets to keep charging, and even though I wanted them to charge these guys, but that would have been more movement point expenditure than getting to here. They didn't have enough to get to this hex, but they had enough movement points to get into this hex, so they charge the broken units, so they end up not really, causing a lot of casualties or anything. Or they might cause casualties, but I don't know. It was, regardless, it was still cool that they were able to clear up the dummy stacks. So yeah, that tank doesn't get any hits, but it was able to drop the smoke. And then, yeah, like I said, it doesn't really help me out getting Shermans off the board at this point, but he's done all I could do, so why not bring him off? Bring him home to his family in Winnipeg or whatever. And yeah, this is all comes down to this, because if I'm able to get this stack right here, full squad with a -1 leader, that's enough victory points to lock in the win. So yeah, so this is his final shot or his final 2 shots, very low odds. And this half squad, I remember now, when he took his first shot, he cowered, which is huge, because when you cower, you don't leave residual. This squad up here left residual, but only 1, and they're smoking the hex, so it's very unlikely it's going to do anything. But yeah, this guy cowering was huge for me, because then, yeah, that was no residual from him, and it would have been higher residual than just the 1 that did end up getting left there. So these are some last 1 or 2 or 3 desperation shots he's taking, and if he misses, these guys are guaranteed to be able to get off the board, and yeah, locks in the win for me. And he does miss all of his shots. Yeah, so the game's pretty much over now. He revealed his AT gun to me. Yeah, just kind of marooned out there. Had no effect on anything, which is fortunate for me that it had no impact on the game. And then, yeah, I think my opponent leaves at this point. But then I kind of finish up some of the close combat stuff just for the sake of completeness, because I care about that, I guess. Yeah, I think we're kind of just like going over, discussing our strategies that we had now that it's over, and we can be transparent about what all we were trying to do. That's basically it, but I'll try to get to these last couple close combat situations before we finish this out. So, like I killed the leader maybe with the Berserk squad. That's considered triple point blank fire. It's very rare because usually you can't just run into a hex with enemy units unless it's you advance in and then you do close combat. But yeah, in those rare situations, when 2 opposing units are in the same hex during like the advanced fire phase and the defensive fire phase, that's the firepower gets tripled, so it's pretty lethal. But doesn't matter at this point. Then this final melee. Oh yeah, bring those guys off. Oh, I think he killed one of my units there. So Lost one more half squad or some unit in a close combat, which sad for them because the game was basically already over, but oh well. And now the game is for real over. So yeah, I think we're done here. That was just a longer than anticipated overview of the scenario trial run. And I'm out.